The phone call came at exactly 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. I know because I was reviewing my monthly expenses at the kitchen table, something I'd done religiously for 40 years. Old habits from my days as a forensic accountant die hard. "Dad?" My son Marcus's voice sounded strained. "Sorry to call so late. Can we come over tomorrow? Jennifer and I need to discuss something important with you." Important. That word hung in the air long after we said goodbye. In my experience, when family said important with that particular tone, it usually meant they wanted something. But Marcus was my only child, and after losing my wife Sarah 3 years ago, he was all I had left. So I said yes. I couldn't sleep that night. Something about his voice bothered me. It wasn't worry or excitement. It was calculation. I'd heard that tone thousands of times in my career, sitting across from executives who'd been cooking their books. But this was my son. I was probably just being paranoid. The next morning I made coffee and waited. They arrived at 10 a.m. sharp. Marcus looked tired, his usually neat hair slightly disheveled. Jennifer, his wife of 5 years, wore a crisp business suit and carried a leather portfolio. That should have been my first warning sign. "Dad, you look great," Marcus said, though he barely met my eyes. We hugged briefly before they settled onto my living room couch. The same couch where Sarah and I had watched Marcus grow up, where we'd celebrated his college graduation, where we'd toasted at his wedding. Jennifer opened her portfolio with practiced efficiency. "Robert, we want to talk to you about your future." Robert. She never called me Dad, which was fine, but the formal tone made this feel like a business meeting rather than a family conversation. "Marcus and I have been worried about you," she continued. "You're 68 now. This house is too big for one person. The maintenance alone must be exhausting." I glanced at Marcus, but he was studying his shoes. "I manage fine," I said carefully. "I've lived here for 35 years. I know every creaky board and loose tile." "That's exactly the problem," Jennifer said smoothly. "What if you fall? What if something happens and no one knows for days? We've been researching, and there are wonderful communities for active seniors. Places where you'd have support, activities, people your own age." The coffee in my cup suddenly tasted bitter. "You mean a nursing home?" "Assisted living," Marcus corrected quickly. "It's different, Dad. You'd have your own apartment, but with meals provided, medical staff on call, social events. We found this amazing place called Riverside Gardens. Jennifer's aunt loved it there." Jennifer's aunt had died 6 months after moving in. I remembered because Marcus had mentioned it casually over Sunday dinner. "Probably for the best," he'd said. "She wasn't really living anymore anyway." "I appreciate your concern," I said slowly, "but I'm not ready for that. I'm healthy. I drive. I manage my own finances, and about that." Jennifer pulled out several papers. "We also wanted to discuss your financial situation. You're still handling everything yourself, all the bills, investments, property taxes. It's a lot for anyone, let alone someone your age. We think it would be wise to set up a power of attorney. That way, if anything happens, we can help manage things." There it was, the real reason for this visit. I've spent 30 years investigating financial fraud. I'd tracked embezzlement schemes, uncovered money laundering operations, and exposed corporate corruption. I knew exactly what giving someone power of attorney meant. It meant giving them access to everything. My accounts, my house, my life savings. "That's thoughtful," I said, keeping my voice neutral but unnecessary. "Everything's organized. I have a will. If something happens, it's all spelled out." Jennifer's smile didn't reach her eyes. "A will only matters after death, Robert. We're talking about quality of life now. What if you get sick? What if you can't make decisions for yourself? We're just trying to help." The word help sounded more like control. Marcus finally looked at me. "Dad, we're not trying to push you. We worry. Ever since Mom died, you've been alone here. Jennifer and I have space. You could move in with us temporarily. See how it feels to not handle everything by yourself. Move in with them. Give them power of attorney. Sell the house. Each step a little closer to losing everything I'd built." "Let me think about it," I said. It was the only thing I could say without revealing that every instinct I'd honed over 3 decades was screaming warnings. After they left, I sat in my study for a long time. The afternoon light streamed through the window, illuminating dust motes that danced in the air. Sarah's photograph smiled at me from the bookshelf. "What do you think, honey?" I whispered. "Am I being paranoid, or is something wrong?" But I knew what Sarah would say. She'd always trusted my instincts. "You can read people like financial statements," she used to joke. "It's why you were so good at your job." I pulled out my laptop and started doing what I did best: investigating. A simple Google search of Riverside Gardens showed glossy photos and glowing reviews. Monthly costs started at $6,500 for a basic apartment. Medical care, activities, and meals were extra. I did the math. Within 2 years, it would drain most of my savings. Then I logged into my bank account, something I did weekly. Everything looked normal at first, but I'd trained myself to notice anomalies, small discrepancies, patterns that didn't fit. 3 months ago, there had been a credit inquiry. Someone had run my credit report, not me. The inquiry came from Premier Home Equity Solutions. I felt ice water run through my veins. Someone had been checking if I could get a home equity loan on my paid-off house, the house I'd told no one about refinancing or borrowing against. I dug deeper. My filing system was meticulous. Every document organized, every statement saved. In my property tax folder, I found something I didn't remember filing: a real estate appraisal from 2 months ago. Current market value, $485,000. I'd never ordered an appraisal. My hands were shaking now. I went through everything: bank statements, credit card records, property documents. That's when I found it. Hidden in my stack of junk mail that I'd been meaning to shred, there was an opened envelope. Inside was a letter from a law firm I'd never heard of. "Regarding your inquiry about durable power of attorney and estate planning." I'd never made that inquiry. Someone had. Using my name. The pieces were falling into place, forming a picture I didn't want to see, but I'd looked at too many fraud cases to deny the obvious: the appraisal, the credit check, the power of attorney inquiry, the push to move me into expensive assisted living. This wasn't about my well-being. This was about my assets. My son was trying to take everything I had. I should have felt angry. Instead, I felt something worse: a deep, hollow sadness. This was Marcus, the boy I'd taught to ride a bike, who'd fallen asleep on my shoulder during late-night movies, who'd cried at his mother's funeral and held my hand through the grief. When had that boy become someone I didn't recognize? Or maybe the question was, when had I stopped seeing who he really was? I spent the rest of that day doing what I'd done for my clients hundreds of times before. I built a case. I documented everything. I pulled credit reports, cross-referenced addresses, traced inquiries, and the more I found, the worse it got. Marcus had debts I didn't know about, credit cards maxed out, a business loan for $75,000 that was 3 months behind, notices from collection agencies. How had I missed this? I'd been so focused on my own grief, on just getting through each day without Sarah, that I hadn't paid attention to what was happening with my own son. Then I found the emails. Marcus had forgotten to log out of his account on my computer during his last visit months ago. I shouldn't have looked, but I was already down this rabbit hole. I needed to know everything. The emails between Marcus and Jennifer went back 6 months. Plans, strategies, discussions about the old man's assets and how to handle him. One message from Jennifer made me close my laptop. I couldn't read anymore. "He's too sharp to just sign everything over. We need to be patient. Show concern. Make him think it's his idea. Once he's in Riverside, we can sell the house before he realizes what's happening. The power of attorney gives us full control. He won't be able to stop it from a nursing home." My own son. I sat there as the sun set, watching my study fill with shadows. Part of me wanted to believe there was some explanation, some context I was missing, but I'd investigated fraud for 30 years. I knew how to read evidence. And the evidence was clear. That night, I didn't sleep at all. Instead, I planned. If they thought I was just a confused old man who could be manipulated, they were about to learn something important. You don't spend 3 decades as a forensic accountant without learning how to protect yourself. The next morning, I called my own lawyer. Not the family lawyer Marcus knew about, a different one. Someone I'd worked with on cases, who understood financial fraud. I need to make some changes, I told him, and I need them done quietly. Over the next 2 weeks, I moved like I was working a case. Methodical, careful, covering my tracks. I transferred my savings into a new account Marcus didn't know about, set up a trust that couldn't be touched, even with power of attorney, documented everything I'd found. I even installed cameras in my house, hidden in smoke detectors and picture frames. If they were going to make another move, I wanted evidence. Marcus called several times, always with the same concerned voice. Just checking on you, Dad. Have you thought more about what we discussed? Still thinking, I'd say. These are big decisions. And they were. Just not the decisions he thought I was making. The breakthrough came 3 weeks later. Jennifer called, which was unusual. She never called me directly. Robert, I hope I'm not overstepping, but I wanted to talk to you privately. It's about Marcus. I felt my chest tighten. What about him? He's under a lot of stress. Business troubles. He hasn't told you because he doesn't want to worry you. But I'm concerned about his health. His heart, specifically. The doctors say if he doesn't reduce his stress, she let the implication hang. My son's health was at risk and I could help by... What? Giving them money? How much does he need? I asked quietly. There was a pause. When Jennifer spoke again, her voice was softer, almost relieved. The business loan is $75,000. If we could just get that paid off, it would give him breathing room. I hate to ask, but you have equity in the house, and I'll think about it, I interrupted. Let me check my finances. After we hung up, I sat very still. The stress angle was new, clever actually. Appeal to my love for my son, make me the solution to his problems. Except I knew something Jennifer didn't. I'd already talked to Marcus's doctors. As part of my investigation, I'd called his physician, identified myself as his father, and expressed concern. Doctor-patient confidentiality limited what they could tell me, but they'd confirmed Marcus had been in for a routine physical 2 weeks ago. Everything was fine. Normal blood pressure, healthy heart. Jennifer had just lied to me about my son's health to manipulate me into giving them money. That's when something inside me shifted. The sadness crystallized into something harder, colder. This wasn't just financial fraud anymore. This was betrayal of the worst kind, using a father's love as a weapon. I called my lawyer again. I need to accelerate the timeline. And I need one more thing. Can you get me a private investigator? What are we looking for? He asked. Everything, I said. I want to know exactly what I'm dealing with. The private investigator's report arrived 5 days later. It was worse than I'd imagined. Jennifer had done this before. She'd convinced her previous husband, an older man with assets, to give her power of attorney. 6 months later, he was in a nursing home and she'd sold his house. When he tried to fight back, she'd had him declared incompetent. He died broke and alone 2 years later. Marcus wasn't the architect of this plan. He was a pawn, a deeply indebted, desperate pawn who'd fallen for a woman who specialized in elder financial abuse. The investigator had found her pattern. 3 previous relationships with older men or men who had elderly parents with assets. Each time, the same pattern. Friendly concern, helpful suggestions, power of attorney, asset liquidation. My son hadn't just betrayed me. He'd brought a predator into our family. I should have confronted them immediately. But 30 years of investigation work had taught me patience. If you move too soon, the guilty can cover their tracks. Better to wait until they make their final move, when all the evidence is in place. That move came 2 weeks later. Marcus and Jennifer showed up unannounced on a Saturday morning. They looked serious, worried. Jennifer carried the same leather portfolio. "Dad, we need to talk," Marcus said. His voice had an edge I'd never heard before. "We've been patient, but this can't wait anymore." They sat down without being invited. Jennifer pulled out papers from her portfolio. "We've already put a deposit down on a space for you at Riverside Gardens," she said. "It was the last available unit, and we couldn't risk losing it. You can move in next month." "You did what?" I kept my voice level, though my heart was pounding. We also spoke with a real estate agent, Marcus added. She thinks we can list the house quickly. The market's hot right now. We could probably get $500,000, maybe more. We've thought of everything, Jennifer said, sliding papers across my coffee table. Power of attorney, listing agreement, even movers for next month. All you need to do is sign, and we'll handle everything else. You won't have to worry about a thing. I looked at my son, really looked at him, searching for any sign of the boy I'd raised. But his eyes were flat, empty. Or maybe they'd always been that way, and I just never wanted to see it. And if I don't want to sign? I asked quietly. Jennifer's smile tightened. Robert, we're trying to help you. At your age, these kinds of decisions are overwhelming. You need family to guide you, to protect you. Protect me from what? From making mistakes, Marcus said. From being taken advantage of. Dad, you're not as sharp as you used to be. Last week you forgot our phone call. You sometimes repeat stories. These are signs of cognitive decline. I'd never forgotten any phone call. I'd never repeated any story. But I understood what was happening. They were building a narrative, establishing a pattern of incompetence, so that when they eventually had me declared unable to manage my own affairs, they'd have examples. It was textbook elder abuse. I need time to read these, I said, gesturing to the papers. There's nothing to read, Jennifer snapped, her pleasant mask finally slipping. These are standard documents. Stop being difficult. Jennifer, Marcus warned. But she was done pretending. No, Marcus. We've been dancing around this for months. Your father is being stubborn and foolish. We're trying to help him, and he's treating us like we're the enemy. Maybe that's because you are, I said quietly. The room went silent. What did you say? Jennifer's voice was ice. I stood up and walked to my desk. From the drawer, I pulled out a thick folder. The investigation report, the financial documents, the emails I'd recovered, the private investigator's findings about Jennifer's history. I dropped it on the coffee table between us. I said, maybe that's because you are the enemy. You see, Jennifer, you made a critical mistake. You assumed that because I'm 68 years old, I'm stupid. That I wouldn't notice the credit inquiries, the appraisal I didn't order, the law firm I never contacted. Marcus had gone pale. Dad, what are you talking about? I'm talking about the fact that I spent 30 years as a forensic accountant for the FBI. I've investigated fraud cases worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Did you really think I wouldn't notice when someone was trying to defraud me? I opened the folder, pulled out the printed emails between them, the financial records showing Marcus's debts, the investigator's report on Jennifer's previous victims. 3 elderly men, I said, looking at Jennifer. 3 times you've done this. Insinuate yourself into their lives or their families' lives. Gain power of attorney. Liquidate assets. Move them into facilities where they can't fight back. Jennifer's face had turned to stone. The difference this time, I continued, is that I'm not some confused old man who doesn't understand what's happening. I see exactly what you are, and I've documented everything. Marcus was shaking his head. Dad, you don't understand. We need this. I'm in trouble. The business is failing. We're about to lose everything. If we don't get that money, then you lose everything, I said. That's how consequences work, Marcus. You made bad decisions. You married the wrong person. Those are your problems to solve, not mine. I'm your son. He was standing now, his voice rising. You're supposed to help me. That's what parents do. Parents raise their children to be independent, to be honest, to be decent human beings. I thought I did that. Apparently, I was wrong. Jennifer grabbed her portfolio. You senile old fool. You think you're so smart, but you're just a lonely old man clinging to money you're too scared to spend. That house is wasted on you. Those savings are sitting there doing nothing while your own son suffers. My son is suffering because of choices he made, I said, and because he married a con artist. But that ends today. I've transferred all my assets into a trust that neither of you can touch. This house is no longer in my name. My accounts are protected, and if you try to proceed with any power of attorney claim, I'll have you arrested for elder fraud. I have evidence, I have witnesses, and I have resources you didn't count on. Marcus sank back onto the couch, his head in his hands. What have I done? He whispered. You chose her over me, I said. You chose money over family. You looked at your own father and saw an ATM machine instead of a person. Jennifer was already at the door. Come on, Marcus. We don't need him. There are other options. But Marcus didn't move. He looked up at me with tears in his eyes. Dad, I'm sorry. I didn't. I never wanted it to go this far. Jennifer said it would be easy, that you'd be happier in a community with other people, that we were helping you. Is that what you told yourself? I asked. That stealing from me was helping me? We weren't stealing. We were just managing your assets, without my knowledge, without my consent, while planning to put me in a facility so I couldn't stop you. Marcus, that's not management, that's theft. And if you can't see the difference, then I've failed as a father even worse than I thought. Jennifer's voice cut through from the doorway. Are you coming or not? Marcus looked between us, his wife and his father, his future and his past. For a moment, I thought he might choose differently, might apologize genuinely, might try to fix this. But then he stood up and walked to Jennifer's side. I'm sorry, Dad, he said one more time, but I need to take care of my family. I was your family, I said, and you threw me away for money you'll never get. They left. The door closed behind them with a soft click that felt like the loudest sound I'd ever heard. I stood there in my living room, surrounded by 35 years of memories, and felt nothing but emptiness. The next few months were difficult. I changed my locks, updated my will, and made sure every legal protection was in place. My lawyer assured me that I'd done everything right. Marcus and Jennifer had no legal recourse. The evidence of their attempted fraud was documented and secured. Marcus tried calling a few times. I didn't answer. What was there to say? Then, 3 months after our confrontation, I received a letter from Jennifer's divorce attorney. She was leaving Marcus, taking half of everything he had left, which wasn't much. She'd moved on to her next target, apparently, another elderly man with assets and a trusting nature. I felt bad for that man, but I'd already sent an anonymous tip to the Adult Protective Services in his county, along with copies of the investigation report. Let them protect him the way no one had protected Jennifer's previous victims. Marcus called after the divorce papers were served. This time I answered. She's gone, he said. His voice sounded hollow. She took everything and left. The business is bankrupt. I'm probably going to lose the house. Dad, I don't know what to do. Part of me wanted to help, to offer solutions, to be the father who fixes everything. But I couldn't. Not anymore. You figure it out, I said. The same way everyone else does when they make bad choices. You pick yourself up, and you do better. I'm your son, he said, and I could hear the tears in his voice. Doesn't that mean anything? It used to mean everything, I said. You're the one who changed that. I hung up. I wish I could say that was the end of it, that I moved on and found peace. But the truth is, it hurt every single day. I'd lost my son long before that final phone call. Maybe I'd never really had him at all. But I learned something important through all of this. Something I tell my neighbors now when we have coffee. Something I share when other seniors ask me about protecting themselves. Family isn't just blood. Family is trust, respect, love that goes both ways. And when someone violates that trust, when they see you as nothing more than a source of money, they stop being family. They become strangers wearing familiar faces. I'm 70 now, still in my house, still managing my own finances, still independent. I've made new friends, joined a local senior center, though not the kind Jennifer and Marcus had in mind. This one is free, full of sharp people who share stories and laughter. Sometimes I think about Marcus, wonder if he ever understood what he'd done, if he ever realized that he'd traded a father's love for a con artist's promises, if he ever wished he'd chosen differently. But mostly, I focus on what I have, not what I lost. A comfortable home, financial security, peace of mind, and the knowledge that I protected myself when no one else would. Last week I got a call from Adult Protective Services. The man Jennifer had targeted after Marcus? He's okay. They intervened before she could do any damage. The investigator said my tip saved him from losing everything. That felt good. Like maybe something positive came from all of this. Like maybe my experience could protect someone else. As I finished my coffee this morning, looking out at my garden where Sarah and I used to sit together, I don't feel angry anymore, just sad. Sad for Marcus, who's living alone now in a small apartment, working a job he hates to pay off debts he can't escape. Sad for the relationship we could have had if only he'd valued it more than money. But I'm not bitter. Bitterness would mean Jennifer won, that she managed to poison more than just my relationship with Marcus. She'd have poisoned my life. Instead, I choose to remember that I survived. I protected myself. I stood my ground. And if there's one piece of advice I'd give to anyone facing something similar, it's this. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. If someone's being too helpful, too insistent, too controlling, ask yourself why. Your assets are yours. Your life is yours. And no one, not even family, has the right to take that from you without your consent. I learned that lesson the hard way. But I learned it. And I'm still here, still independent, still in control of my own life. That's worth more than any amount of money Marcus and Jennifer tried to take. Some might say I was too hard on my son, that I should have given him another chance. But I spent 30 years investigating fraud. I know that people don't change just because they got caught. They change when they understand what they've done and genuinely want to be different. Marcus never got there. Even in that last phone call, he was still asking for help. Still seeing me as someone who could solve his problems. Still not taking responsibility for his own choices. So, I let him go. Not with anger, but with sadness. The way you let go of anything precious that's already lost. And I moved forward. Because that's what survivors do. We adapt. We protect ourselves. We build new lives from the ashes of old ones. If you're listening to this, and you're facing something similar, know that you're not alone. Elder financial abuse is more common than people want to admit. It happens in good families, bad families, and everything in between. It happens because some people see vulnerability as opportunity. But also know that you have power, you have resources, you have the right to protect yourself, even if it means protecting yourself from your own family. Don't let guilt or obligation or loneliness make you a victim. Don't let anyone convince you that taking care of yourself is selfish. It's not. It's survival. And survival, I've learned, is the ultimate form of dignity. So here I am, at 70 years old, sitting in the house I built with my late wife, managing my own life, making my own choices, independent, secure, free. It's not the life I imagined when Marcus was born. When I held him for the first time and promised I'd always protect him, I never imagined that one day I'd need to protect myself from him. But that's life. It doesn't always go according to plan. People change, or maybe they reveal who they were all along. Either way, you have to adapt. I adapted. I survived. And if my story helps even one person recognize the warning signs and protect themselves, then maybe something good came from all this pain. That's all any of us can hope for. To turn our wounds into wisdom, our losses into lessons, our betrayals into boundaries, and to keep living, independent and strong, no matter who tries to take that away.